Carancho is a gripping crime drama that delves into the dark underbelly of the legal and medical industries in Argentina. Take your seats and let's dive in. In the very first scene of the movie, we depict Sosa being beaten to the core, which sets the tone of his character's struggles. In the meantime, we meet Lujin, a young doctor who has recently arrived in Buenos Aires. She attempts to get an internship as a surgeon, while also working night shifts on the ambulance. Soon, she is seen preparing herself to depart for a car accident site to provide medical assistance. As fate has always taken unexpected turns, both Sosa and Lujin meet under the harsh lights of the city's night. Sosa happens to be a witness to the accident. Therefore, upon her arrival, Lujin requires his help with the patient to lift him up properly for the stretcher. Noticing the injuries on his face, Lujin urges him to get stitches. Therefore, Sosa hastily follows the ambulance to the clinic. Once there, Lujin faces a problem getting the patient admitted, prompting a clash between her and the receptionist. At that exact moment, Sosa intervenes, calling one of his acquaintances in the hospital, a kind gesture that facilitates Lujin's job. Shortly after accomplishing her job successfully, Lujin expresses her appreciation for Sosa's gentle intervention, and before separating, they both exchange their contact information. Intrigued, Lujin questions her colleague about Sosa and the depth of their acquaintance. He reveals their long-standing friendship for over 8 years, expressing his profound dismay when Sosa turned to predatory practices after losing his license, exploiting victims of road accidents, much to Lujin's disappointment. In the following few sequences, we witness the challenges that Lujin encounters during her shifts. Endless cases of assault victims, women in labor, and even instances of patients attempting to harass her by making unwanted physical contact. On the other hand, we find Sosa in his office interacting with these victims, who are often confused and in distress, not fully understanding the extent of the exploitation they are subjected to. Sosa is a lawyer who has been disgraced and disbarred for unethical behavior. Despite his past, he continues to work in the legal field as an ambulance chaser. He often encourages desperate individuals to stage accidents in order to claim compensation from insurance companies. He has strong connections with ambulance drivers who are complicit in these schemes, ensuring they arrive quickly at the staged accident scenes to provide assistance. And, in return, Sosa gets a cut of the insurance payout. In the following scene, we catch a glimpse of Sosa's internal conflict and his struggle to break the chains of the cycle of corruption that he is part of. He addresses his friend, informing him about his impending resignation once he gets back his license, expressing his intense exhaustion. However, his colleague tries to throw him a lifeline, urging him to remain united until the opportune moment arises to flee the ceaseless cycle of corruption they have been stuck in for so long. He convinces him that Rinaldi will topple El Perro, who keeps threatening them, as soon as he gets the chance. Later on, we depict Sosa fishing in troubled waters at the hospital in an attempt to take advantage of their sorrows, whereas Lujin continues her labor of love with her saving missions. In the subsequent scene, one of Sosa's friends rings him up to retrieve the documents he left in the lurch at the hospital the previous day. At the same time, Lujin happens to be there. Therefore, they reunite for a coffee alongside their colleagues, talking about the disastrous accidents where they have lived to tell the tale so far. Meanwhile, Sosa can't take his eyes off Lujin, lost in her beauty. Soon their glances meet, eliciting admiration from Sosa. Soon, an accident occurs, prompting Lujin to make tracks immediately. On her way to the ambulance, Sosa accompanies her, trying to break the ice. He questions whether she loves her work, to which Lujin confirms, mentioning that she is not willing to rest on her laurels as she is aiming for the stars, a shared dream between them both. Playfully, Lujin wonders whether he is lying in wait for more accidents to take advantage of. However, Sosa rebuffs that, expressing his desire to turn over a new leaf and start a fresh life. Yet since he is encountering her often, he is more willing to stay put, a revelation that surprises Lujin, who thinks that he is laying it on thick. Dismissing her thought, he suggests holding the fort for her after finishing her shift, a request met with acceptance. After accomplishing her mission, we find Lujin dolled up to the nines, beautifying herself before meeting up with Sosa. When she is out, she discovers him waiting with bated breath for her arrival. Welcoming her warmly, she expresses her extreme exhaustion, yearning for some shut-eye. Sosa, undaunted by her fatigue, extends an invitation for a quick cup of coffee. In the ensuing scene, they peel back the layers, sharing their background and their interesting journeys through life. Soon, Sosa learns that Lujin, after getting her degree, landed a job with flying colors thanks to Pico. But when she asks Sosa about the reasons leading to the suspension of his license, he sweeps it under the rug, denying any wrongdoing. He changes the topic, throwing down the gauntlet to Lujin. If 3 cars pass the red light, he will kiss her, making her as red as a beetroot, much to Sosa's delight. Against all odds, 5 cars pass the red light. Despite initially playing hard to get, Lujin ends up accompanying Sosa to his house, lost in the throes of passion, kissing each other passionately. Their desire is thick in the air as they fall on the bed, their bodies intertwined. Unfortunately, Lujin falls asleep after a draining day. On the following day, as usual, Sosa hits the road to his office, where he encounters one of his friends, Vega, who's down on his luck and in need of money. They agree to cook up a scheme to fake an accident together. Sosa informs him that he will get the money by milking the insurance company. In a private talk, Sosa's colleague greases Vega's palm with $200 to buy his silence and ensure his loyalty, persuading him to sign on the dotted line. In the subsequent scene, Lujin rises and shines from a deep slumber. She puts on her clothes and heads to the kitchen, where she finds Sosa slaving over a hot stove. She grills him about the previous night, curious about what transpired. She soon learns that she fell asleep almost instantly. Sosa steals a moment to kiss her fervently before they join forces in the kitchen. In the ensuing scene, Lujin, down on her luck, is called for an extra night shift due to her colleague's illness. Meanwhile, Sosa is in cahoots with Vega, dotting the I's and crossing the T's on their plan. Sosa drugs Vega with a substance and gives him pills to numb the pain. Then he takes a swing at him with a hammer, breaking the ice and his leg. Sosa immediately lends him a shoulder to cry on, while Vega cries out in agony and accompanies him outside. Waiting for a car to arrive, Sosa reaches his car, keeping his eyes peeled on the unfolding events. A few moments later, a car is spotted in the distance. Vega makes a beeline for it and takes a dive onto the windscreen, ending up on the ground in a pool of blood. Sosa hastily rushes towards Vega to check on his well-being, while onlookers flock together, and the driver, scared out of his wits, insists that Vega is the one who threw himself in front of him. On the other side of the city, Pico picks up Lujin, and they reach out for the accident site. However, doubts creep in Lujin's mind, since they didn't receive any calls reporting an accident. Much to her astonishment, she finds Sosa there, claiming that Vega is his friend. Demanding clarifications, Sosa promises Lujin to spill the beans, but first beseeches her to help Vega cheat a fatality. On the way to the hospital, Vega's heart stops, sending Sosa into a tailspin, beseeching Lujin to do something about it. Shortly after they arrive at the hospital, they transport the patient to the shock room, hoping against hope to save him using defibrillation, but unfortunately he passes away. Lujin walks out of the room with a heavy heart to fill out the report. Sosa follows suit, grasping at straws about Vega's situation. He falls apart when he learns that Vega has passed away. Lujin, seeing red, asks him to give her space, leaving him in the lurch. Shortly after filling out the report, the police officers come knocking, requesting a copy of her report. In response, she informs them that they can find it at the front desk, and makes tracks immediately. In the corridor, she encounters Sosa embracing Vega's wife, who mourns her husband. She tries to offer a shoulder to cry on before departing. At the hospital door, she finds Pico, where she reads him the riot act for taking part in this heinous plan. But he reveals that the agreed plan was only about a little white lie. Soon Sosa follows Lujin's footsteps, asking her to hold off on signing the report and pledging that he is going to set things straight. He attempts to explain that Vega was in dire straits, and that it was the only way to get an amount that could assist him in overcoming his troubles. But it's not a convincing excuse for Lujin, who stands her ground and asks him firmly to keep his distance. In the following scene, we depict Lujin completely immersed in her job, treating patients and helping them recover. She seeks security and meaning in her profession, which becomes increasingly difficult when a horrific event throws a spanner in the works during her night shift. 2 men arrive in a devastated situation following a huge fight. Despite their injuries, they add fuel to the fire by restarting their clash, with others attempting to jump on the bandwagon. In the next scene, Lujin reunites with Pico and their friends. Amidst their talks, they question Sosa's whereabouts, sensing his long disappearance. One of them complains that he vanished into thin air before paying him his money back. On the other hand, Lujin drinks her coffee, lost in a sea of thoughts, reminiscing about her shared moments with Sosa. Subsequently, while Lujin dives headfirst into her night shift, Sosa unexpectedly appears in front of her. Astonished, she approaches him, wondering about his presence. With a longing tone, Sosa, after checking about her well-being, requests a few moments of her time to converse. However, Lujin informs him that she is tied up with work and makes a beeline for the door. Sosa's attempt to regain his attorney registration and start anew is met with hostility. culminating in a brutal attack initiated by his former associates. They come out of the woodwork and beat him, urging him to get back on the horse and bring them money. Otherwise, they will keep him under their thumb. In the following sequence, Lujin walks into the emergency room, only to be met with a shocking scene. Sosa's head is bleeding. She rushes to his aid, wondering about what has occurred. Lujin accompanies him to cure his injuries and makes his stitches, and Sosa wears his heart on his sleeve. He confesses that following Viga's accident, he decided to turn over a new leaf and leave his sordid past behind, awaiting the return of his license. When she first appeared in front of him, he knew that the winds of change were blowing, but fate had other cards to play. He reveals that he passed the bulk of Viga's money to his wife, as she deserved that, as a first step to wipe the slate clean. However, he admits that his former partners won't give him a moment's peace, and they hound him ceaselessly every week. It's a moment of reckoning for him, where he must choose between his past actions and a potentially different future. He asks Lujin to accompany him, but she turns a deaf ear to his words. Once in the ambulance accompanying Pico to perform their usual work, he teases her, claiming that she fell for Sosa hook, line, and sinker. But Lujin dismisses that. She tries to unveil her feelings, but love cannot be concealed, for the eyes betray the heart's secrets. It's clear that love is not a pie you can slice. It reveals itself in unexpected ways. Subsequently, we depict Sosa visiting Kazel within the confines of the Foundation's office, the place where his life was turned upside down and his dreams were shattered like a glass house. He confronts him, asking to leave him alone and let him work. However, Kazel warns Sosa, reminding him that following Viga's case, he kept all of the money for himself and ran away with the tail between his legs, and he cannot ask for more now. Unfazed, Sosa persists in his stance, saying that he is no longer willing to work with them. Instead, he wants to work peacefully on his own, gain a good amount of money, and then depart, a request that Kazel rebuffs immediately. Kazel, ever stubborn, ensures that everything in the city is under his control, and Sosa should instead steer clear of the storm. Sosa, ever smarter, starts recalling cases in which Kazel robbed the victims, taking more than half of the money refunded for the affected families. He informs him that he has every copy of the agreement forms, and he can easily make them sue Kazel, a revelation that hits him like a ton of bricks and renders him powerless. Before departing, Sosa demands, giving him a little time to feather his nest, and he will leave for good. In the ensuing sequence, we find Lujin along with her superior in the hospital, where she gets reprimanded for providing a patient with the wrong medication, urging her to swallow her pride and remedy her mistake, despite her need for an urgent respite. Later on, while in a deep slumber, she is being called for an emergency, an accident in which a car and a truck collided head-on on the highway. Lujin rushes hastily, attempting to save the wounded. Unfortunately, they are able only to save the husband, whereas the brother bites the dust. Upon delivering the sad news, the injured woman mourns her brother, crying a river, ending up in Lujin's embrace, seeking solace. It comes to her realization that the accident was done with a stroke of someone's pen. As promised, Sosa reaches out to the grieving woman for assistance. She expresses her doubts concerning the refunds, but Sosa assures her that everything will come up roses, and before signing any papers, it is better to bring them to him to explain the provisions. In the following scene, we find Lujin's superior reading her the riot act for being involved in Sosa's unethical and illegal behavior. Despite denying that, her superior lays down the law, warning her for the last time to stay away from any skeptical or suspicious actions. Otherwise, she will get the axe. Out of rage, Lujin retreats to the restroom with sedatives to take the edge off her nerves. But unfortunately, she soon collapses on the ground. Once she opens her eyes, she finds herself nestled in her bed. Sosa joins her shortly, playing nursemaid for her health. She puts her head on his lap, asking him to stick around. In response, Sosa plants a reassuring kiss on her cheek. Back to his messy life, Sosa decides to call in the cavalry with El Perro. He approaches him asking for security, fearing any foul play from Kazel. On the other hand, El Perro reveals that Kazel and Rinaldi are plotting, trying to stab him in the back, for always those in low positions reach for the stars. He agrees to protect Sosa under one condition. Since El Perro is determined to rule the roost with the 5 powers of attorney, he asks Sosa to lend a hand and bring him the papers signed. However, Kazel throws a spanner in the works, informing the general counselor that Sosa's powers of attorney have been revoked. In the meantime, while on her usual shift, one of Lujin's former patients pays her a visit in the hospital, extending an invitation to her daughter's birthday. She is appreciative of her going the extra mile in saving her husband. and expresses her immense honor to roll out the red carpet for her. Despite initially turning it down due to her extensive working hours, Lujin eventually ends up painting the town red at the party, accompanied by Sosa. The couple start dancing, enjoying the festivities, moving to the beat and sharing mutual giggles. We can sense their devotion thick in the air. They embrace each other warmly while swinging, and they seal the deal with a passionate kiss. They soon end up on the bed, with their bodies wrapped up in each other, sharing fervent kisses. We bear witness to their intimate moments, with their burning passion filling the room. Later on, while laying on Sosa's chest, Lujin confesses that she started taking sedatives after crossing paths with an anesthetist, and since then she has become addicted, for they help her shed pounds like a snake sheds its skin. They both open up to each other, revealing their deep secrets like an open book. In the following few sequences, we catch a glimpse of their happy and delightful moments together, reading books, watching movies, and sleeping peacefully in each other's embrace. Their love is blossoming like a flower in spring, and their bond is getting stronger with each passing day. Lujin's influence on Sosa is significant, as she represents a beacon of hope and a ladder to redemption. He starts to genuinely help the victims of exploitation. Instead of profiting from their misfortunes, he assists them to navigate the legal and insurance complexities to ensure they receive the compensation they rightfully deserve. One night, Sosa accompanies Lujin to her night shift, and before departing for her tasks, they share a passionate kiss. Little do they know that that night will be a turning point in their lives. We depict Lujin engrossed in her duties, working like a well-oiled machine, updating medical records, and managing treatments with care and precision. Later that night, after accomplishing her missions, she retreats to take a shower to wash away the day's stress. However, suddenly the lights turn off, casting a shadow of fear within her soul. She heads towards the door, only to find that it has been locked. Suddenly, Kazel and his partner storm the room, threatening her. Kazel hits her brutally following the reports she has been filling, adding insult to injury. Shortly after, we depict Sosa driving his car like a bat out of hell in order to reach his beloved. He finds her in a devastating condition, with blood all over her face. He accompanies her back home hastily. With a heavy heart, he holds her face, demanding pardon for getting her involved in his corrupted cycle. Lujin, on the other hand, asks him to lend a hand in easing her pain. Therefore, Sosa injects her with pain relievers, taking the edge off her discomfort. In a moment of sincerity, Lujin wears her heart on her sleeve, expressing her profound love for Sosa, requiring his presence beside her. Sosa, ever considerate and caring, plants a kiss on her forehead, vowing to go to the ends of the earth to always protect her. Shortly after, consumed by rage, Sosa storms Kazel's office. His anger, a mix of protective instinct and pent-up frustration, drives him to physically attack Kazel violently until he ceases breathing. Frightened, Sosa beats a hasty retreat from the place. On his way out, he encounters Rinaldi, who discovers shortly afterwards the heinous crime Sosa has committed. Sosa goes back home immediately, where he finds Lujin in a deep slumber. He awakens her, asking her to pack up her belongings quickly to depart. Lujin, unable to fathom what happened, hastens to join her partner. Upon their exit from the elevator, they both catch sight of the police officers awaiting Sosa in front of the building. Lujin loses her cool and starts crying ceaselessly. Sosa attempts to calm her down, asking her to immediately go back to the apartment and hold the fort. Refusing to leave him initially, Sosa raises his voice, demanding that she follow his orders. He pledges to come back and save her soon. Sosa heads to the police officers, who handcuff him and take him to Kazel's office, where he finds El Perro. The latter, even though he believes that Sosa went overboard, is appreciative for allowing him to regain the upper hand and control without any threatening enemy. The police officers are already up to their necks in corruption. Therefore, they uncuff Sosa. Since Sosa keeps all of the cases for himself, El Perro instructs him to cash the checks and bring him the money. Despite informing him that the money isn't his own, El Perro is steadfast in his pursuit. He reminds Sosa that he got his friendship and protection, twisting his arm to be grateful instead of rejecting his demands. El Perro throws caution to the wind by ordering one of his partners to accompany Sosa and keep tabs on him in case Sosa attempts to stab them in the back and flee with the money. Once back home, Sosa seeks solace in his lover's presence, drowning in each other's eyes, showering each other with tender kisses and warm touches. In the ensuing scene, after sizing up the police presence in front of the building, Sosa puts his thinking cap on to devise a cunning plan to get the money and escape alongside Lujin. We depict him laying all his cards on the table for Lujin, who starts crying, asking him to stick to her and dismiss any foolish actions. However, unwavering like a lighthouse in a storm, Sosa asks her to trust him, emphasizing that she just needs to apply the plan as agreed. He provides her with the exact address where he is supposed to meet El Perro to hand over the money he requested. Lujin, with a heavy heart, embraces him tightly, expressing her fears of losing him. However, Sosa, ever caring and thoughtful, promises that everything will be okay. The following morning, after Sosa's departure to meet El Perro, Lujin doesn't let the grass grow under her feet. She grabs her bag immediately and rushes towards the car secretly. In the meantime, we depict Sosa caught between a rock and a hard place. After signing the papers and securing the checks with a huge amount of money, he promptly heads to the bank, where he finds El Perro waiting for his arrival. They start converting the checks into cash, with Sosa's frustration etched all over his face. On the other side of the city, Lujin is engrossed in securing the final step of the plan. She therefore agrees with one of her friends to hit the car that Sosa will ride, in an attempt to throw a spanner in the works for El Perro and regain the money. A risky plan indeed. After accomplishing their task, Sosa is about to leave when El Perro halts him, asking him to accompany them. He is unwilling to cut the apron strings instead. He urges him to go back and work within his foundation. Hesitant, Sosa rides in the car, apprehensive about what awaits him. He injects himself with a painkiller to take the edge off his pain. He soon puts on the belt and bids El Perro farewell, before a truck hits the car with vengeance. Lujin, on the other hand, along with Pico in the ambulance, awaits the arrival of the truck with bated breath. Once they spot it, they rush to the accident site instantly. We bear witness to the horrific scene unfolding before our eyes. The car is flipped over, the glass is shattered, and blood is covering the ground. Frozen with fear, Lujin runs towards Sosa, checking on his well-being. Fortunately, he turns out to be alive. She assists him, along with Pico, to get him out of the car, take the suitcase, and hurry towards the ambulance. Once there, El Perro ambushes them, opening fire. Alas, Pico bites the dust. While Lujin is screaming blue murder, Sosa asks her to give him the gun, and he starts shooting at El Perro. Amidst the shootout, Sosa is struck by a bullet. However, he is determined to make a break for it with his lover. They get in the car, and while they are leaving under the gunshots of El Perro, they run him down. In the final act of the movie, we depict Lujin gripped by fear, trembling to her core, tears streaming incessantly as she drives the car. Sosa, with a glimmer of hope, tells her to escape the city together after recovering the money to start a fresh life. Little do they know that it will be the last shared dream and the last shared glances. A finale filled with a sense of tragedy and inevitability. A powerful ending that opens our eyes to the human condition and the difficult choices people must make when faced with a corrupt system that preys on the vulnerable.